Hi folks, in case you want to know, I haven't been on vacation, not on a real one at least, but I've been rather busy with the hardware random number generator project, and a lot of funny things have happened. So my original plan for today was to do an episode on what entropy is and how to extract it from noise and why this is important for hardware random number generators. But so I guess all I do today is an update on all the funny things that have happened since last time. Now, the previous episode I showed you a number of Zener diodes that I ordered to try instead of the ones I got from this cheapy, well, not exactly cheapy, but basically fairly cheap set. And none of them actually worked. They were just not noisy enough. Now, my original test setup, which I used for some extended testing and that I kept running for days and days and days, eventually got me enough data to give it a die-hard test run. And what happened was what shouldn't have happened. Basically, die-hard decided in one of the tests, I need more data to make sure. Unfortunately, for one of the tests that need lots and lots and lots of data. So let it run for another week or more. Then I was away, kept it running, and afterwards I had about 43 gigabytes worth of test data, and that let me run dieharder with 3 times the amount of normal regular test data, and it worked fine. So I had a working noise generator doing about almost 21 kilobytes per second, which is pretty good as far as I've been told, and that even without the little trick Casper Peterson mentioned in the forum on using a BAT85 Schottky diode to improve the transistor behavior and getting out of saturation again. Well, I had a working generator and sent a mail to the Cryptech mailing list. And boy, did I get a response there. Hadn't really expected this. A lot of people there were supposed to be on vacation, so I was told pretty much right away that I shouldn't expect too much of a reaction, and did we wind up in discussions. They're a really cool crowd. And so I now actually have some pretty knowledgeable people taking a look at the things I'm doing, which is excellent. Anyway, then came the big screw up. I ordered a couple of Zener diodes These Zener diodes, they're not specified of any given type in the box itself or in the order number they given here, but they are marked as some BZX55C6V8. So I ordered some of those, assuming that they would work, and I also ordered some SMD ones. And the basically same ones like in here didn't work. They were not noisy enough, not by far. Makes me think that probably these ones are basically what didn't pass quality control. Probably the best explanation for what's going on here. The Zener diodes were even crazier. They worked according to the scope, but running them through dieharder and RNG test and that sort of stuff showed that they were not creating proper random data, which was absolutely weird, because I've been using a way to extract random data out of the noise that should be pretty much fail-safe. And at that point, all my nice theoretical explanations, working code and that sort of stuff, it all fell apart. This was frustrating, especially so because I now had told the Cryptech people, hey, I've got something working here. And it took me several days to figure out what went wrong. And believe it or not, I screwed up a makefile. Now, when I ran the tests, I had a firmware in the microcontroller, which I had written to test in a way that I tried to squeeze as much throughput out of a Zener diode that I actually measured its performance from. And actually, accidentally, I left it in there rather than putting the firmware in there that was pretty much kind of fail-safe. More on that on the next episode, but we need a bit more theoretical background on that before I can explain that. So once I've replaced the firmware, the Zener, SMD Zeners worked reasonably well. Slower than this extra crappy stuff here, but they worked, and apparently reliably. Only problem is it'll need some more time for testing. Still left me a problem with the through-hole components. I mean, I've actually got hold of two more of these sets, so I've got a total of, well, 45 of suitable Zener diodes with this proper voltage, except that I'd already kind of burned 10 of these in various boards and given another 10 of these away to the Cryptech people and whatnot, but I have a couple more of them left. But that's not an option for producing things. So next thing I did was based on a suggestion by Bernd Pezon in the Cryptech mailing list. I reconsidered using the BE junction on a transistor, which basically behaves the same as a Zener diode, has the same avalanche effect, and I tried whatever I could get hold of and found that the humble BC337-16 actually works reasonably well. Gives me about something like 15 kilobytes per second worth of test data, at least the ones I've tried. Yeah, that opened a rather ugly problem, because if I build this sort of stuff, where do I get the noise sources from reliably? The data sheets only tell you noise no more than, but I need noise at least, so and so. So this may be a bit of a problem. The best option, again, according to Bernd Pezon, who I've met earlier this week, but that's for later, is to actually buy them in bulk and make sure we get from the manufacturer devices which meet our specs, which means I'll probably have to order a couple 10,000 or so of these. Not such a big deal. I mean, if I pay like 5 cents for these, it's okay. So the second best thing I could come up with is make this as flexible as possible, and the circuitry is pretty good for that. You can plug in whatever noise source or component you get. It gets amplified no matter what the breakdown voltage exactly is, and you extract the entropy in such a way that it is actually pure entropy. It doesn't contain any redundancy anymore. More on that in the next episode. And other problem, of course, here is quality control. How do I ensure that if I start to build these devices as maybe a crowdfunding project or so, that these are giving me a proper yield so I can actually make use of these? What about if I just give away or sell PCBs for people to solder up themselves? I guess I'll have to get hold of these components as well to give them to pass them out as well. Gonna be some fun with that in the future if this ever gets to the point that is actually hitting some sort of manufacturing stage, which I'll try to do. Anyway, what I've just ordered after I got to this point was ordered a couple PCBs from Seed Studio in Hong Kong, and well, China anyway. I think they're actually manufacturing in Shenzhen, but they were shipped through Hong Kong, something like that. And I started to write down things, because if I want other people to test this, I better write down what's going on there, how these things work, and how to test them. And if you don't start that early, you never do especially the introductory and fundamental concept sort of stuff, because it's rather tedious to write these things. What also happened was that I, on short notice, got invited to a Cryptech meeting in Stockholm on Monday and Tuesday this week. So I spent about 3 days in Stockholm in Sweden. Got there sometime Sunday, left there on Wednesday, was a very interesting meeting. I only knew Randy Bush beforehand, but that was a really nice crowd. That's where I talked to Bernd Pezon and a couple other people involved there. Hang on. Yeah, that's a souvenir from Stockholm, by the way, because the flight out there was just hell. They actually provided free polar air from northern Sweden throughout the airport. Basically means it was freezing cold in there, and I only had a light jacket because I thought that would be enough, or a t-shirt in even an air-conditioned environment. Not in Stockholm, not in that airport. By the time I got here, I got a rather serious cold and spent the last 2 days trying to get rid of that again. Aside from playing around with computers in such a way that I can't do any serious damage. Anyway, I had ordered these boards, and as soon as the boards get here, I can do some more testing, do testing in parallel with different devices, and it'll be dealing with problems concerning radio interference, all sorts of stuff. Only the boards should have been here today, but they were stopped by customs because I have to do some extra paperwork for this. What's crazy is when I ordered things at Seed Studio, I ordered a couple other small stuff as well. I now have LCD driver thing for my Bus Pirate and some sort of case, and I sort of squeezed them all together in one. That got through without a problem through customs, but the PCBs not so. And yeah, they want me to do some extra paperwork. I got most of it done, but I have to send something off tomorrow morning and hopefully get the stuff here by Monday. And then I can do some more testing. And there's something else that we talked about during the Cryptech meeting, which is that I should actually ensure that these devices don't start to introduce redundancy in their output when they start to age. Now, the way I extract the entropy, that shouldn't really happen, but at least I want to be absolute, or want to make reasonably sure that these devices don't age faster than they're supposed to, especially using the BE junction, which is not really meant for this sort of stuff. In other words, I now have an excuse to buy one of these little toaster oven things with a bit of microcontroller thing other people use for SMD soldering, and use that to artificially age some chips, if that works. And basically means heat them up to 250 degrees Celsius, let them run there for a couple minutes, then cool them down to room temperature again, and up and down and up and down, while running more current than usual through them, and see what happens. Yep. So that's pretty much all that happened. Oh, hang on. There's one more thing I already mentioned, but I should explain in more detail. In one of the previous episodes, Kasper Pedersen suggested to use a BAT85 as a sort of saturation preventing extra on the higher stage transistor amplifiers, and that works even with the standard BC547C, which I normally use for this stuff, and gives me about 40% more throughput than using a BF959 high frequency transistor. So excellent thing. That works. Reduces the, no, it keeps the number of nets on the PCB the same, so no more extra test pins. I can get rid of the gain controlling resistor, and I just get all the gain out of the transistor that I can. Gives me very nice steep transients and just works like a charm. So really cool, we'll use it. There's one more question that I might have to decide, which is do I want to have one amplification stage or two? With two stages I get slightly steeper transients again, and I can use a less noisy Zener or avalanche effect components than with a single amplifier stage, but of course it means more components on the board, more things that can fail, more things that need to be tested, and more a larger board and whatever. So yeah, more things to come. And yet another thing, while I'm at it, the board size. I've already shown you these cases, this and a similar one. Inner sizes are the same. Yes, I can fit things in here. It works. It's a bit crowded, but it works using through-hole only. And my guess is using SMD components, I get it half the size in all 3 dimensions. So that would be, well, a slightly largish USB pen drive sort of thing, but that might actually be really useful. And I've talked to Frederick Tulin, don't even really know how to pronounce his last name, it's just Frederick. We've been talking about these things, and we'll try a couple different variants. He'll try some other stuff with different microcontrollers. I intend to go towards the PIC at some point, where I get a 14-pin through-hole or SOIC alternatively device with built-in USB. Once I know everything else is working, I'm gonna go that way and see that I can get rid of the FTDI chip at the cost of having to write an extra driver on the host side. So that'll be drivers for Linux, for FreeBSD, maybe for Solaris, maybe for macOS, and of course, I guess for Windows. Ooh. I'll get it done somehow. It's not going to be a kernel driver probably. I'll probably get this all done in user space, but we'll see about that. Anyway, so much about that. So next episode, talk about what entropy is and how to extract it. Start to write up a couple things on that today as well. And with this makefile screw up thing, I guess I'll do one episode on what makefiles are and how they work and how to really screw up and waste 4 weeks of time generating useless test data with them. Wow. And while I'm at it, also I've been meddling around with FreeBSD again. I can actually get it now to work on these notebooks, at least mostly, which is cool. Have to run FreeBSD stable and build ports myself, but okay. So what I thought while I was just trying to drink as much peppermint tea and orange juice as I could before I sweat it out again, I've got little, let me show you. This is a little tiny server sort of thing. It's a PC Engine's Alex board. I've had a few of these for quite some time. They're pretty useful for some small stuff. Thing is, they only have a serial console. They don't have a regular monitor output. So I guess I'll show you how to install FreeBSD on these. Gets back to the rescue system, possibly, if you want to use that. And I also have, can you see that? Hang on. Hang on. Oops. One of these babies, an HP ProLine microserver, also a couple days older, because I need a new file server anyway, and I'm probably going to set it up on this, and I decided might as well show you in a video how to do FreeBSD the way I like to set it up, and that's not the way how the installer does it. But it gets you a nice file server, and it teaches you quite a bit about how Unix works. So I guess I'll do that as well, but not today, because after all, it's Friday evening and I'm not gonna sit here doing videos all night. I like to do it, but I don't like to do it that much, really. Okay, so much for today. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did and watch this on YouTube, you do me a favor if you give it a thumbs up there. If you want to discuss, if you have suggestions, questions, wild abuses, but please no more spam, because that's another thing I have to do. I've got so much spam on the forum these days. I really have to do something about that as well. Anyway, if you don't want to spam me, come over to the forum at www.stepladder-it.com/bivblog/31. And in any case, hopefully see you again a little sooner than between the last two episodes, or this episode and the previous. Yeah, maybe actually Sunday or Monday, we'll see. Any case, see you soon. Bye.